Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin. I am a fourth year urology resident now. Almost gonna be a chief. The year is coming to an end. It is crazy. But it is about that time of year where medical school is starting up. And I thought I would give some tips for first year medical students because I do think this is a huge transition from college to medical school. It definitely was a very hard transition for me personally. And I thought I would share some wisdom that I have picked up along the way. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please don't forget to subscribe. Let's jump in. So my first tip is to go to all the happy hours, networking events, everything that the school has set up for you. Depending on your school, the first week, 2 weeks is kind of an orientation. I remember in my school we had a baseball game, we had like a scavenger hunt to get to know the campus. There were tons of different events. And it's so great to meet all of your classmates and kind of form a core group of friends if you can, even that early. You know, obviously that's subject to change as the time goes on, but the people that you meet in medical school are so important. You know, medical school is really, really hard. These are the people that you're gonna lean on throughout your 4 years. These are the people that you will potentially study with. They can really shape your medical school experience, not to mention kind of they're the people who are gonna influence you down the road, potentially influence what specialty you pick. They're gonna be lifelong friends and colleagues. So I do think that the friendships that you form are so important, and it's hard to make friends in medical school because you're pretty busy. It's not like you have a built-in dorm or a built-in sorority or anything that maybe you had in college that helped facilitate friendships. And I just think it's nice to get to know people early. I made a great group of friends my first 2 weeks of medical school based a lot on these events. Also, a lot of them were in the building that I lived, which was very convenient. But, you know, I think we would have been friends anyway, and we met each other at some of these events. And some of them were my bridesmaids. So, you know, even now, graduating medical school, we all went into different specialties, and they're some of my closest friends. And I think that it is so important to form those bonds to get you through a tough 4 years. My next piece of advice is don't overload your schedule too early. Everyone who goes into medical school, I think, is someone who's used to being really high achieving and overachieving. And it is so tempting to sign up for every lab, every research project, every volunteering opportunity, every shadowing opportunity. But there really is so much to learn, and you really do need to spend a bulk of your time actually learning the material that will A, help you take the tests that you need to take to become a doctor, and B, actually like knowledge that you need to know as a doctor. And I think you need to figure out what that commitment looks like before overcommitting yourself to other things. Next is figure out what study method works for you. Hopefully in college, you have honed some of these skills, although college, I have a video about this, like medical school versus college, but I think they're totally different beasts. Medical school, there's so much information that you really need to study every single day and stay on top of everything, versus college, I think it's more, you're more able to cram closer to the exams. Medical school is not like that. Everything builds on each other. It's just so important to stay on top of the material because there's so many, like hundreds of slides every day. So you need to figure out what works for you. Are you a home studier? Are you a library studier? Are you a group studier, or are you by yourself? Do you learn more by going to lecture, or do you learn more by listening to lecture later? For outside resources, what works for you? Are you a video person? Are you a book person? Just kind of like, are you a question person? Just kind of figure out what works for you. I will tell you the resources that I used. Keep this in mind. I graduated many years ago at this point. So these might not all be up to date. But for me, I was definitely more of a video studier and like an audio studier. So I leaned really heavily on the lectures that were given. All of our lectures were recorded. I took copious notes on all of them. I listened to them multiple times. Really helpful for me. I did Pathoma multiple times through. I did Sketchy multiple times through. And I did like questions, UWorld questions. I wasn't really an Anki person. I wasn't so much a first aid person. So those were my main resources. I watched some videos on YouTube for more specific resources. Rachel Southard, I think that's how you say her name. I watched her video and she has some great options for resources. I'll link her video down below. but those are the main resources I used. But really just figure out what works for you. I think at the beginning of medical school, I really tried to like go to the library. In college, it's harder to study at home because you're in a dorm room. Like I lived in a dorm room basically all my 4 years, except for a bad apartment my 4th year. But there wasn't as much space to study in your apartment, so I was a library studier. In medical school, I tried to go to the library. Turns out I'm not a library studier. I'm very much a home studier. And by the time I figured that out, you know, I like became way more comfortable in studying and way more effective. So I think you just need to figure out what works. My next piece of advice is in your first year, don't focus on trying to pick what type of doctor you're gonna be. There is so much time to figure this out. I think I've said this multiple times, but I'm pretty sure I'd never even heard of a urologist when I entered medical school. I had literally no idea what that was. And turns out that's what I decided to do. So don't focus so much on being really rigid and sticking to, you know, exactly what you think you want to do. You may end up doing that, and that's awesome, but you may end up changing your mind. And I just think it's stressful to like be fighting internally, trying to figure that out the whole first year when you have so many other things going on and so many other things that you're trying to figure out. So just keep your mind open, keep your options open, and save that stress for later. My next piece of advice is do not compare yourself to others. I know this is so much easier said than done. And by others, I kind of mean your classmates within medical school. Everyone has a different background. Everyone has different strengths. It's so easy. You're in a class, you're in the same class with your entire classmates. You know, like for us, all 150 of us or whatever, we're in a lecture hall. We took every class together, every small group. You know, we were split up into groups, but everything was the same for all of us. And it's hard not to compare yourself to others, but you will find your own path within the group. I also mean don't compare yourself to your friends who are not in medical school. I think this is honestly even more important. Your friends who are not in medical school will have more weekends, they'll have more evenings, they'll have more money, they'll have different lives than you. And sometimes it's easier to be like, well, their life is better, and that's not necessarily the case. It's worth it in the end. And I think that's why also, like I mentioned, forming strong relationships with people in medical school is important because you're all on the same page and it gives you a community that's doing the same thing as you versus always talking to your friends who are going to this weekend and are able to go to this wedding when you can't. So don't compare yourself to your friends from college who are probably living their post-college really fun lives. My last piece of advice is to schedule something to look forward to. I have probably made videos about this in the past. I'm a huge proponent of having something to look forward to, especially in times that are going to be stressful, that are going to be big changes that you're not settled in, which the beginning of med school is one. Schedule a trip home, schedule a vacation, give yourself a break, have that to look forward to so that you're not completely caught up in the craziness of the first year of medical school. You have a window outside. I think that's really important. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If you are a medical student or a resident or an attending or someone in medicine who has any other tips, please leave them below. If you have any questions, please leave them below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.